Hello, and welcome in to School Talk on 98.5 WJHI LP Jeffersonville, home of the Red Devil Network. Here today with us, a new Hall of Famer, the Indiana Wrestling Hall of Fame head coach of Jeffersonville High School, Mr. Danny Struck. How are we doing today, Coach?
I'm doing fantastic. Love that I get to be here.
Here on School Talk, it's August the 3rd. We're getting ready to start the school year up, and let's start off with that, Coach. The school year right around the corner. I know you've got a lot of focus as a teacher and also as a coach, and your mind's on a lot of different things, but I wanted to start off with you, as we mentioned in the start here, going into the Hall of Fame. Talk about the process of that. Did you know you were up for nomination? When did you find out, and how did you end up feeling once you found out you were going to be in the Indiana High School Wrestling Hall of Fame?
Oh, man. Actually, you know, when I say this, it's going to sound like I put myself in. I'm on our committee for the Hall of Fame. I've always been involved in our Indiana High School Wrestling Coaches Association, IHSWCA's, process. A lot of coaches at our school and different coaches around are in their coaches association. So that's one of the boards I'd always sat on. And so I got I actually saw my name on the docket to get voted in before the meeting even happened, and I kind of was like, I'm too young for that. And when I say young, I'm 43, but I'm one of the younger guys on the committee. So when it happened, I just kind of sat in the hallway. I said, I don't want to be a part of this, and because I don't feel worthy. I don't know that anybody feels worthy, but it is a awesome feeling to know that other people think you're moving in the right direction with kids, and that's really what I look at it as is, am I doing the right things for kids? Oh, these guys that I respect say I'm doing the right things for kids, because it's never a goal to be in a Hall of Fame, I don't think. At least it never was for me. It's a byproduct of trying to do things for kids, and so that part I feel honored, but we got so much left to do, not just in Jeffersonville with wrestling and with kids, but in the state of Indiana, and I'll continue to be a part of both of those things.
For you, when you look back at your growth in wrestling as an athlete, I don't think a lot of people know you went from Jennings County as a wrestler, moved your way up through coaching. Who are some of the mentors and people that got you to where you are today?
Well, I guess I'll start with my dad. My dad coached football for, 25 years, and he stepped down when I was from high school, when I was probably in fifth grade, to coach me, and we called it Kiwanis football there. So, my dad was a coach growing up, and then he coached me in 5th and 6th grade in football, and coached my brother in 5th and 6th grade in football, and he coached all our baseball teams. So my dad was always my coach, not so much in wrestling. He never wrestled, but to me, coaching is coaching. It's just about relationships and different ways to build relationships. And so my dad has always been that, and still is the mentor today. I go back and I talk to him after every meet. He doesn't miss a Jeff High wrestling meet, even though he doesn't miss a Jennings County football game. He went to Jennings County and coached there for 25 years. So he comes to all the Jeff wrestling meets, goes to all the Jennings County football games, and he's still the coach I ask the most to. Right there with him, second most I ask is my high school wrestling coach, T. Howard Jones. He still teaches, but last year was his last year coaching, I think, for 41 years. He was my wrestling coach in kindergarten, and he was my wrestling coach my senior year of high school. So, and when I say that, I only wrestled in kindergarten and first grade and then never did again until high school. But he started and finished me. And, I still call him to this day if my dog dies, like, how do I handle this? Or, just things in life that if I can't get all Dad right then, I call T. Howard Jones up. And I still call him Coach Jones or Mr. Jones. He's, I respect him and love him. And he's in the Coaching Hall of Fame. After that, I went to college. And my college wrestling coach was Terry Weatherald, and it was a small world. I have a picture hanging in my basement that's my dad in his first year coaching in 1967 at Jennings County High School with my college wrestling coach, Terry Weatherald.
Wow.
They coached together for 1 year in 1967, and in 1995, when I got a call from University of Annapolis to come there and wrestle, my dad's like, what's the name on that? I coached for him 1 year in 1967, so came full circle. And my college wrestling coach is in the High School Coaches Hall of Fame because he started Jennings County's program, moved on to 40 years of college coaching, and then he was my college coach as well. So, I've always just been blessed to not just have average wrestling coaches, but I guess Hall of Fame coaches and a dad that was a coach, and that's kind of where I get like I'm a coach. I'm always going to be a coach.
To highlight on that mentorship, I think when I watched you as a coach and somebody that doesn't have a wrestling background, you seem to be very heavy with the coaching philosophy of almost being a mentor before a coach. And I think that's really built into your whole philosophy. You look at kind of how you lead the program. For people that don't know, you're huge on team bonding. You're huge on bringing everyone together from really the elementary grade up to the high school. When you coach a team, I think you do it differently than most, because everybody seems to have, hey, let's take care of the varsity team this way. Let's let the JV coaches take care of JV. You seem to be very big on bringing everybody together.
I really appreciate that you notice that. And honestly, you just seeing that when we're on the mat means a lot to me. You watch a lot of sports, so that I can't explain how much that means to me. That is what I want for our program more than anything. There's 14 starting spots on a wrestling team, but last year we finished the season with 70 kids. So, it can't just be about the number one guys on the team, because what about the other guys? Or, some of my coaches were junior varsity wrestlers in high school, but they got a love for the sport. Where would you get that love for the sport if you were always concentrating on the starters? I was blessed in going to Jennings County High School. We had a fantastic wrestling program, but, I was probably one of the, I don't know if the worst kids on the team, but one of the kids that struggled to learn athletically. I'm not a gifted athlete. And the way Howard Jones ran things kept me involved and kept me jumping up there with the kids and kept me always feeling involved. And, I don't know if I went to a modern day high school or in wrestling, Brownsburg High School is a state championship team, that I would have got to start. So I was in the perfect place at the perfect time to teach me a sport and love it. And Mr. Jones, Howard Jones, coached with the philosophy of Jennings County High School, a experience that will last a lifetime. And that's what built my coaching foundation. I guess I am getting old. I do a lot of coaching clinics around the country, and they never ask me what moves to show. They're always asking about the team bonding and about how do we get so many kids out. And the first thing I tell coaches is I don't coach wrestling because I love wrestling. And if you're coaching wrestling because you love the sport, first, you're doing it wrong. First, you have to love kids. And then wrestling is the thing that makes us connect with the kids. So, it'll be my first year not coaching football in 22 years. Kids that I had in football know me as a football coach. I got into coaching because I love kids. Football was the way I connected with those kids. And I think that's how, Coach Briscoe, I'm watching him practice out there, how he would do it. I haven't asked him that, but watching him, I see that. Like, the sport is a connector for kids, and then that will transition into your relationships, into your team bonding and all that. And then you got the sport. And since we can't do any moves here on the radio, team bonding is more important. People are hearing what we say about kids. Community's hearing what we say about kids, and relationships trump all the sport.
Now, how are you able to manifest team bonding at this point? Because I think for coaches, this is probably the most challenging of times, maybe in the history of athletics. For you, being a wrestling coach, what are you able to do to stay connected with your team? I know you're still a little bit away from the start of the season, but I know being wrestling and with conditioning, you got to get way ahead of the curve with conditioning and being above getting the team together as fast as possible. What can you do right now for team bonding, and what's been the biggest challenge outside of trying to meet virtually?
Man, I ended up last season as fired up or more fired up than I've ever been for coaching. I had a great coaching staff. We had 70 kids finish the season and only 4 seniors. So we have 66 returners. You add our middle school into that, first practice should have 82 kids. That's if nobody new comes out. So I was on fire. I'm ready to go. I'd already planned like a canoe trip. I planned I already given them where our summer trips were going to be, because we do a lot of trips during the summer. And then one day we have a meeting and they say, hey, we're not going to come to school tomorrow. And all I could think was, yes, extra week of spring break. And then spring break, here we are in August, and we're still on spring break, jokingly. So we had to find a new way to connect. And what we did in wrestling was, at first it started off, we met twice a week on Zoom calls. Well, and as it kept going, we decided, hey, let's go to 3 days a week Zoom calls. And our new basketball coach, both boys and girls, Grants and Voiles, joined in on those, and now we have wrestling, basketball, and basketball together, and Coach Briscoe joined in, and now we have volleyball, basketball, wrestling together. And in my wrestling team, 35 of those 70 played football, 3 or 4 played soccer, we had 2 on the cross-country team. So we started having all these sports together, and to me, because I do teach, coach sports strength and conditioning here, it was more important that we were together as a community, and these kids were seeing each other together. So, Coach Grant says better together. I've always said count on me, or hashtag 20 sports, one team. And that's how we did it. We did it together. We did it 3 days a week through Zoom. It was 2 days a week, weightlifting and conditioning live, body weight, or I'd hold milk jugs, I'd hold bands, I'd hold anything that I can put weights in my hands. I'd switch it up every week so kids could see something different. One time I had a kid lifting a grill. That was his apparatus on there, like a small grill, but it was a grill. We had somebody using a chair as their weightlifting device, but kids found a way to make it happen. Coach Somerville, longtime co-coach with me, he said, we're trying to teach kids to prepare. When we come back to school in wrestling, we're going to be in preseason. We're preparing for season. Summer was spent preparing to be able to come back to prepare. And he would talk to the kids about that. And that's what our summer focus was. And we've given the kids a couple weeks off now because I want them to start football, soccer, cross country, golf, tennis, whatever fall sport they want. And typically at this time of year, we would have been at nationals. So what we normally do is go nationals, give them a break about a month. Out of the 12 months a year, we give them a month break to start a fall sport. We want them in a fall sport. And then for the ones not in a fall sport, we wait a few weeks so they're not pulled a direction or the other. And, we'll start here in a few weeks with our real preparations with the guys that aren't in a fall sport.
For you, the multi-sport that you just brought up format, I've talked to every coach from Voiles to Grants to Parker, every athletic department here. They're all on board with multi-sport, and I think the credit really goes to you for being the originator of that. You were somebody that early on pushed out, hey, let's play together. Let's not have coaches against each other. Let's see if we can help each other's team out. When did you become such a big proponent of the multi-sport, and how did you get everybody on board where even now, from being a history in athletics, usually basketball coaches want basketball players to only play basketball. You get really, specialized in sports. How have you been able to turn that into a positive where now everybody's on the same page?
I'm glad you say that. I never know. Sometimes we all live in our own little bubbles, I'm down in the weight room all day. Honestly, if you wouldn't have brought me up here, I would not have seen an adult today. Because I don't have kids in the classroom, and you guys bring me up here. So I try to get out and learn what other adults are doing and other philosophies. And actually, I just sent an email out to the whole coaching staff asking them if they would want to eat lunch together once a week, and we would talk about these things because I want to hear what's happening at football practice and see if I can help. Like, oh, I got a wrestler that's a lineman that's struggling with this. Can I help him? And I think it's just the teacher in me. If we're educators first, educators get together in we call them BLTs here, or cohorts, or in your prep period you have your team meeting, whatever you want to call it, and you talk about kids and how, man, I can't get across to this kid. How do you do that? And the teachers talk about that. And I think the closer our staff at Jeff High gets across sports, the more we'll be able to help kids. And I'm so glad the way our new coaches are coming on and doing that. It's funny to say I'm the old coach here. I think, I'm not trying to lie here, but I think I'm the most tenured coach maybe in the school corporation, meaning without a break. I've coached 18, 19, or 20 years here at Jeff High without a break. And so I've seen different trends where coaches kind of hoarded people together, coaches push people out. And I would think right now is the most I've ever seen kids jumping in and out of other sports, trying other sports, supporting other sports. And I hope that trend stays. I think research is starting to be so prevalent on how bad it is for a kid's body to just be stuck into one sport. I mean, if you just wrestled 5 days a week year round, I don't know how bad that would hurt your body. If you played football 5 days a week year round, the overuse injuries from that would be terrible. So I think coaches are understanding that, seeing the research, and our new coaches today, or coaches of today, are starting to understand how important it is for kids to play other sports. Lastly, with it, just if I was a college coach, I have 1 year of college coaching, and just in that 1 year, understanding a kid that knows how to take directions from multiple people, from multiple sports, they're going to join into your program so much quicker than a kid that's only had one coach his whole life, never a different perspective, and now he's having trouble with what you're coaching him. So I think it makes kids more coachable, and college coaches already know that and are looking for that.
For you, I think this is certainly a great time. I know you've been a big advocate of social media and using it, to promote multi-sports and the Jeff Wrestling program. I know your work speaking at the top of the show about the Coaches Association and now being a Hall of Famer for the state of Indiana wrestling. If somebody's at home right now, whether they're a student or a parent, and they're at the elementary, middle, or even the high school level, what would you tell them provides value in wrestling that maybe they don't know about? I think people really, basketball and football always seem to be the forefront just because you see it on TV every day. But for people that are interested in wrestling and say, hey, this might be something I want my kid to get into, what are the values that wrestling provides from the coaching standpoint that you think makes a lifelong difference?
First, I love listening to all your coaching shows because I love your questions. I find it awesome how well you research stuff and know what questions to ask. You didn't tell me these beforehand. These are great questions. Yeah, you're right. Wrestling, people don't know about wrestling. People still call me to this day. We've won the last 3 sectional titles here, and you guys put us on TV and stuff, and I still get a call that'll say, hey, will my kid learn to body slam someone? And I'll say, no, it's going to be completely safe. And they'll say, oh, well, we were looking for him to learn how to body slam someone. And like,
WWE.
Yeah, they don't get it. And there was a time here in Southern Indiana where OVW was a big thing, and NCAA champion Brock Lesnar was living down here doing TV shows, and Olympic gold medalist Kurt Angle was living down here doing TV shows. And people thought if they weren't up on collegiate style wrestling, which is what we do here, folk style wrestling at Jeff High, they were like, that guy's a real wrestler. He's a pro wrestler. They must be the same thing. So, which I love both. I love watching both. It's probably why I did it. My first person I ever remember watching wrestle is Kurt Angle, and he's a big pro wrestling star. So anyway, that can be for a different podcast, pro wrestling fans. But balance, agility, mental toughness would be 3 right off the top of my head. But first, with our program, if you're getting into our program, since we're Southern Indiana listeners, the number one thing kids get into sport for, USA Today does research every single year. They do a poll. The number one thing every year USA Today says is that kids get into sport to make friends. And man, what a powerful thing that is. If we're coaching sport just to win, or we're coaching sport just to, keep kids in our own program, the kid got into the sport likely for friendship. And if we don't allow them to make friends in that and do the team bonding and to do the things where hey, whole wrestling team, we're going to the volleyball game, or whole swim team, you're coming to the wrestling. Like, if we don't do that, we're not doing what the kid came out for the sport for. So wrestling and any sport at Jeff High can give you friendships that will last a lifetime. Just this weekend, my 3 best friends from my high school wrestling team were texting each other saying, hey, what are we going to do tonight? I mean, that's 25 years later. And that's what I want for these kids in any sport at Jeff High. So number 1, friendships. And the more sports you're in, the more friendships you'll have. And like Navy SEALs, what builds bonds between people? Going through tough times together. So, why do people on football teams, why are they friends for their whole life? Like, football's tough. You take hits, you lose games, and you cry together. So they're building a bond for life. Why wouldn't I want a kid to have that bond from football, come into wrestling, and build that same bond, even stronger now? And then they take that bond and go back to football. So the second would be the bond, not just the friendship, but the bond, because mental hardships shared together build bonds, like lifelong bonds. After that, I can't think of anything better for hand fighting for football than wrestling. And I want my wrestlers to play football because then they're working on hand fighting in the off season as well. I don't know of anything. Every sport has its own thing that makes it unique and awesome. So I'm only speaking of my sport. I'm not putting down others. I can't imagine anything more mentally tough than saying, go out on the mat by yourself and this guy's possibly going to slam you. He's possibly going to headbutt you. He's possibly going to do all these things that you don't want him to do. Stop him, because you're a teammate and you need those team points. Like, you're doing this for others. So when we do things by ourselves for others, it's also a great character builder, and that's what wrestling is doing. And now take that wrestler and throw him back out on the football field. He's used to doing things that are uncomfortable to him for others. Well, of course he can step in and be one of 11 starters. So I just use the football and wrestling as a transcendent back and forth. But that kid that's used to being by himself in front of others, now he's up there against an 85-mile-an-hour fastball. Like this, the skills transcend into so many other things. I could spend all day on it, which is why I like the multi-sport philosophy.
Head coach Danny Struck of Jeffersonville High School just elected into the State Hall of Fame for Indiana wrestling. The last thing I want to ask you, Coach, is I know you said there's, still only being 43 years old, you got a lot of coaching left in you. For you, when you talk about the future, what is at the top of the goal list for Jeffersonville? I know wins and losses are important. I know team bonding is important. I know you also have some things with future ideas. We didn't even get a chance to talk about your Olympic grant today. I know that's got pushed around. I know there's a lot of things that you have on the horizon, but give the community a little bit of an idea of what you want the future of Jeff Wrestling to be.
That's a good question. There's me goals and there's we goals. So I'm going to stick with the we goals, not necessarily my goal, but what I would see as a vision for the we. So many kids wrestle in Jeffersonville. I have 200 kids that wrestle every year in 3rd through 5th grade. In our club, pre-K through 6th grade, we have about 100 kids usually. Our middle schools each run about 30 to 40 kids, so that's 80 middle schoolers. And then our goal is to have 100 kids try out for wrestling a year, but keep 70. So on any given year, there's roughly 400 wrestlers in Jeffersonville. I don't know of any other sport here that's that big. So one day I'd like to see a complex for those kids to do those things. Our basketball coaches, volleyball coaches are so awesome about sharing court time with us, because to have a meet, you got to put the wrestling mat out on the court. So we have a lot of days that we got to block the basketball court, and it's just what it is. It's how it is. It's not fair to one or the other, and it's not against one or the other. But if we had a facility for those, it would enhance every single sport at Jeff High, because they'd get more time on there. It's not to be selfish for wrestling to get us a facility. It's to be selfish for all sports. So that'd be one goal. Goals and purposes are two different things. My goal is to have sectional, regional, semi-state, state champions, national champions, international champions. But my purpose is to make every kid reach its genetic potential and be the best version of themselves they can be. For that, I need former wrestlers getting involved and coming back and sharing that philosophy. So my goal is the winnings, right? But the purpose is bigger. And for that, I hope we're instilling in our kids here in Jeffersonville Wrestling to give back to their community. If they can't come back and coach, I want to see them I have wrestlers that are cops. I have wrestlers that are firemen. They come back. They do speeches to those kids. So expanding the purpose of Jeffersonville Wrestling is very important to me. And then, there's the wins and losses. I'd like to win a state title. We say state at the end of every single practice. I'd like to coach the me part. I'd like to coach on every single continent. I've got 5 down. I got to get Africa, and I don't know if there'll ever be a wrestling tournament in Antarctica, but if there is, I'm going to go to it. I want to do that. I want to coach in all 50 states. I got 5 left to coach left in, and so there, there's personal goals, and there's purposeful goals, and there's we goals, and I'm not short on any category and wanting.
As head coach Danny Struck of Jeffersonville Wrestling, just elected into the Indiana Hall of Fame for wrestling. Coach, I really appreciate you coming in. Hopefully we can do it again soon. Hopefully sooner than later we'll get to have a wrestling broadcast on TV around the corner. We're still a little bit away, but hopefully we can get that up sooner than later. Yeah,
thank you for having me. Nobody does wrestling shows better than you guys. If people haven't got a chance to see it, I'm sure we can find some on YouTube. Maybe I'll need to post one up on our YouTube page, but nobody does wrestling better than WJHI.
Well, we appreciate it, Coach. That is head coach Danny Struck with us today of Jeffersonville Wrestling. Well, we'll have to bring him in again. He's got a lot of things on the horizon, Olympic grant, also a ton of college scholarship athletes that we'll talk about in the future next time we bring him in. We thank you for tuning in to School Talk here on 98.5 WJHI LP Jeffersonville. You can rewatch this interview on the Red Devil Network. 1 and 7 o'clock every day it will replay. That's on 98.5 FM, streaming on WJHI.com, and on TV Cable 184, and then one wrinkle to add in there for you, now on YouTube. So if you go to YouTube, Red Devils WJHI, you'll be able to watch this interview with Coach Struck and future interviews on School Talk. We thank Coach Struck for coming in. I'm Clay Abel saying so long for School Talk here on August the 3rd. Thank you for joining us on 98.5 WJHI, LP Jeffersonville, home of the Red Devil Network.